Good evening, and welcome back to Boring History for Sleep. Let's set the mood, dim your lights. Get cozy beneath your blanket, and maybe let a fan hum gently in the background, like a distant medieval breeze. Before we step back through time, a tiny bit of housekeeping. Feel free to like and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy this calm corner of history. And if you're awake enough, comment below where you're listening from. And what time it is right now, your midnight might be someone else's dawn. Now, close your eyes and imagine this. You wake up not in your modern bed, but in a small timbered room smelling faintly of rosewater, beeswax, and a hint of something less lovely. It's the Middle Ages, and today you're about to begin your daily beauty routine by medieval standards. That is, the first thing you notice is the quiet. Morning in the medieval world doesn't burst awake, it stirs slowly. With a muffled cough from the hearth and the sound of a rooster somewhere far too pleased with itself. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of wood smoke and yesterday's stew. You stretch beneath a rough linen sheet, feeling the fabric scrape softly against your skin. It's not unpleasant, just honest. Linen has a way of reminding you that softness is a luxury still a few centuries away. A sliver of dawn light pushes through the window, if you can call it that. There's no glass, of course. It's just an oiled cloth or a thin linen draped across a narrow slit in the wall. It does a valiant but entirely inadequate job of keeping the cold out. The room glows dimly, gold and gray, with dust motes drifting lazily in the air. You sit up, pull your woolen shawl around your shoulders, and glance toward the small wooden table near the bed. On it sits your mirror, not a framed rectangle of polished silver, but a shallow bowl filled with water that trembles slightly as you move. You lean over it, and there you are rippling, uncertain. Reflected through the surface like a ghost trying to make up its mind. Your face seems different here, somehow more honest and less forgiving. There's no illusion, no soft lighting, no flattering angle. Just you, lit by morning, half asleep, and entirely human. You splash a bit of water on your cheeks. It's cool, a shock that wakes your senses faster than any cup of coffee could, though, if you're lucky. There might be ale later. For now, this will have to do. You reach for a small cloth, coarse but clean, and dip it again into the bowl. Some mornings you add rosewater if you're fancy, or mint if you've thought ahead. But often it's just well water cold, metallic, faintly earthy. The scent of it fills your nose, and you dab your face carefully, as though coaxing life back into tired skin. Paleness, you remind yourself, is everything. A pale face means leisure. It means you don't spend your days harvesting wheat or scrubbing laundry in the river. The irony, of course, is that maintaining this precious paleness takes more labor than any field work. You must guard against sunlight, like a dragon guards gold. Sunlight is the enemy, freckles the scandal. A bit of pink from cold air is charming, a tan is ruinous. You glance again at your reflection, squinting slightly. The water flickers in the dim light. Perhaps you look a little tired. Or perhaps it's just that this kind of mirror is designed to tell the truth. You've heard that noble ladies in great halls have polished metal mirrors. Silver, even steels that shine enough to show a smoother version of themselves. Those mirrors probably don't wobble every time the wind sighs. But there's something oddly soothing about this ritual. It's not vanity so much as maintenance, a way to start the day with a small gesture of control in a world that rarely offers much of it. You can't predict the weather or the mood of your lord, or whether the bread will rise. But you can wash your face, smooth your hair, and greet the morning as best you can. You stand, wrapping your shawl tighter. The chill bites at your ankles where the floor's rough planks peek from under a worn rug. You cross to the window and lift the cloth slightly. Outside, the light is still soft, the world washed in a faint mist. You can smell damp straw and hear distant voices, someone tending animals. Someone else singing a low, half-awake tune. You wonder, briefly, what the day will bring. Will there be guests to impress? A visit to town? A holy day, perhaps, where appearances matter even more? You return to your table, studying your reflection once more. The water has settled now, and your face looks camiff, a little stern. You tilt your head, imagining for a moment what others might see when they look at you. Do you appear refined, modest, approachable? These questions float quietly in your mind, heavier than the water in the bowl. You reach for the small pot of salve beside it, a mixture of herbs, beeswax, and maybe a dash of whatever oil you could get from the apothecary last market day. You rub a bit between your fingers until it softens, then smooth it across your face. The scent is faintly floral with a suspicious undertone of animal fat. Still, it does the job, leaving your skin with a subtle sheen that catches the light. Beauty, in this age, is a performance with very limited props. You don't have cosmetics counters or ring lights. You have candlelight, cold water, and faith that these little rituals will convince others, and perhaps yourself, that you are something closer to perfection. As you finish, the reflection in the bowl stares back at you, steadier now, calmer. Outside, the day grows brighter. The light catches the uneven surface of your mirror, scattering it into 1,000 small glints that dance across the wall. You smile faintly. It's not glamour, but it's enough. You pour out the water carefully, watching it splash onto the packed earth outside your door, and for a moment the puddle gleams like polished glass. Your face disappears with it, absorbed into the morning. And as you turn to prepare the rest of yourself, your hair, your skin, your armor of pale perfection, you can't help but think, perhaps beauty isn't about being flawless after all. Perhaps it's just about noticing the light when it first finds you. Still, there's work to be done. The face may be clean, but the skin must be perfected. After all, in a world that worships pallor, the next step is both art and obsession. If modern beauty ideals are all about the glow, medieval ones are about its exact opposite. Your goal is not to shimmer like the sun, but to look as though you've never met it. The perfect complexion is pale, nearly translucent, a sign that you have the good fortune to spend your days indoors, safe from labor and sunlight. In a world where every mark on your body tells a story, pale skin tells the story of privilege. You sit by the window's dim light, your bowl of water beside you, and inspect your reflection again. Perhaps you notice the faintest tinge of warmth in your cheeks, evidence that yesterday's errands in the courtyard were a little too long. Disaster. You can already imagine the gossip. She's gone ruddy. Time to fix that. You reach for your small chest of remedies. Inside lie an assortment of powders, jars, and crushed minerals that smell faintly of metal and vinegar. These are your tools in the battle against color. You unstopper a tiny vial, its contents chalky and pale lead white, mixed with vinegar and egg whites. You know, somewhere deep down, that this can't be good for you. The apothecary did mention it tingles if you use too much. Still, you dip a fingertip in and smooth the paste over your cheeks. The coldness bites pleasantly before it begins to sting. You tell yourself that's how you know it's working. The mixture dries, it tightens your face into a porcelain mask. You sit still, trying not to smile, because that will crack it. If anyone wonders why women in portraits look so serious, this is probably the reason. The paint on your skin catches the light in patches, giving you the chalky pallor of a saint carved from marble. Saints, of course, are the ultimate models of virtue, pure, luminous, and utterly bloodless. You reach for another pot, this one filled with a milder concoction of ground bone and vinegar. Some say it's safer than lead, though safe is a flexible term in your century. You dab a bit around your temples and along your jaw, chasing every shadow that might betray the shape of life beneath the surface. Your goal is to become ethereal, untouchable, almost divine. If the lead doesn't suit you, or you can't afford it, there are other tricks. You might apply powdered chalk or mash up boiled lily bulbs into a pale paste. Yes. In times of desperation, you could even dust your face with flour. The trouble, of course, is that flour cakes with sweat and slides off at the first hint of humidity. You risk looking less like a noble lady and more like someone who lost a baking fight. Still, the effort is worth it. You've seen the tapestries, the illuminated manuscripts, queens and noble women with skin so white it borders on celestial. No blemishes, no freckles, no hint of human imperfection. You imagine them waking up like that, but deep down you know they, too, probably had their jars of poison and paste. The smell of vinegar lingers faintly in the room, sharp and clean. You reach for a small cloth and blot your skin delicately. Stiff now, unyielding, but your reflection looks radiant, or at least the medieval version of it. You wonder, not for the first time, if beauty should really feel this dangerous. Then again, survival in this era is rarely safe, so why should vanity be? You look out the window again. A shaft of sunlight has found its way through the linen covering, cutting a warm path across your table. You turn away instinctively, shielding your face. The sun is both the giver and the destroyer of beauty. It bronzes the skin, etches lines, deepens every freckle. Some women go as far as carrying small veils or parasols made of thin silk to protect their delicate complexions when they venture outside. You consider it yourself, though you suspect the neighbors will whisper that you're showing off. If only they knew the effort behind this look. The washing, the mixing, the layers of powder. And later, when the evening candles burn low, the ritual will begin again in reverse. Scraping it all off with a damp cloth, the smell of vinegar filling the room once more. Beneath the white mask, your skin will be red and tender, but for now, no one must see that. You pause and study your reflection again. It's strange, this devotion to pallor. Somewhere deep in the layers of meaning, beauty has become a kind of prayer. You aren't just imitating nobility, you're chasing the idea of purity itself. A fair face suggests a fair soul, spotless complexion, a spotless heart. It's theology in a jar. But even as you admire your handiwork, you can't help but feel the pull of vanity. Beneath the saintly surface is something more humane, a desire not just to be pure, but to be admired. You catch your reflection at a new angle and almost laugh. You look like an alabaster statue that might start preaching at any moment. You reach for a small brush and dust a faint layer of powdered iris root over your neck and chest to even the tone. The scent is sweet, almost comforting. You tilt your head and let yourself breathe again. The effect is convincing. If anyone saw you now, they might think you've never lifted anything heavier than a quill, but the face alone won't do. True beauty, after all, requires more than a mask. It demands maintenance, a careful chemistry of potions and powders that promise youth, radiance, and the occasional rash. And for that, you'll need your collection of mysterious little jars. You sit at your small wooden table, the heart of your morning ritual, the closest thing you have to a laboratory. The table is uneven, scarred by years of candle wax, ink stains, and perhaps a little spilled vinegar from less successful experiments. A small hand mirror metal, not glass, rests nearby, its reflection warped and slightly greenish. It shows you not quite as you are, but as some alternate version of yourself, a little blurred, a little mysterious, maybe even a touch saintly. Spread across the table is your arsenal. Tiny wooden boxes, cork-stoppered bottles, and ceramic pots with chipped edges. Inside them, a gallery of scents and dangers. Ground chalk, rose oil, powdered eggshell, crushed herbs, and the occasional alarming trace of mercury. It's part vanity, part alchemy, part unlicensed chemistry experiment. You imagine, briefly, that your apothecary must laugh privately every time a noblewoman requests something that glows without effort. You begin by uncorking a bottle of almond oil. The smell is rich, nutty, faintly sweet. It's the base for nearly everything: moisturizer, cleanser, perfume, even medicine. You pour a drop into your palm and rub it gently across your face, over the stiff pallor of yesterday's lead paste. It softens slightly, leaving a sheen that looks almost healthy, almost modern. Then comes the rosewater, cool, sharp, floral. You dab it along your temples, the back of your neck, and your wrists. For a moment, you feel more alive than holy, which is a rare thing in this century. Next comes the fun part, the transformation. You open a small ceramic pot painted with fading blue vines. Inside is a mixture of powdered bone and vinegar, faintly shimmering. You scoop a bit with a wooden spoon and stir in a few drops of egg white, watching it become a glossy cream. It smells faintly of breakfast gone wrong. You apply it carefully to your cheeks, spreading it in circles until it dries. Your skin feels smooth, but your conscience prickles. You remember the stories? How too much lead makes the mind wander, the stomach turn, the hair fall. Still, perfection has always had a price tag, and yours just happens to come with mild poisoning. From another pot, you take a bit of white clay and mix it with honey, making a mask that promises to draw out impurities. You apply it over your nose and wait. Somewhere in the distance, you hear a servant knock, offering to light the hearth. You decline. You can't risk melting your efforts before they're dry. While you wait, you glance through the rest of your collection. There's a small vial of ground pearls reserved for special occasions when you must impress guests or appear in church beside someone prettier than you'd prefer. Next to it, a lump of alum that whitens teeth if you rub it hard enough, and a tiny pouch of saffron threads meant to tint your hair gold. You're aware these things come from faraway Persia, Venice, maybe even the Orient. It's astonishing, really, how global trade can find its way into one woman's vanity. Once the mask begins to crack, you rinse it off in your basin. The water turns cloudy, swirling with faint gray ribbons. You pat your skin dry with a square of linen, and for a moment, your reflection looks almost luminous. The powders and pastes might be toxic, but they work at least for an hour or two. The next step is perfume. You open a delicate glass bottle so thin, it feels like holding a bubble and breathe in the scent of rosemary, lavender, and something faintly smoky. You dab it behind your ears and at the corners of your sleeves. Medieval perfume is not subtle, it's survival. Masks, smoke, sweat, the lingering smell of tallow candles. You may never have hot running water, but you can at least smell as if you do. Apothecaries grinding, merchants sailing, farmers harvesting the herbs all so someone like you can sit here pretending to be perfect. You can almost hear the quiet irony of it humming beneath the scents. Still, these jars feel like magic. They are promises in miniature. Clearer skin, brighter eyes, a longer youth. The results may be uneven, but belief itself does half the work. As you finish, you run a comb through your hair, the faint fragrance of rosewater clinging to your fingers. Your vanity table now looks like the aftermath of a gentle explosion powder dust, smeared pigment, open bottles, but you feel transformed. You've conjured beauty from earth and oil, bone and bloom. A small act of alchemy, performed daily and privately, just to make the world see you differently. Outside, a bell tolls from the village church. The morning has passed while you've been mixing miracles. You rise, stretching, careful not to smudge the pale armor you've crafted. The air near your face smells faintly of flowers and vinegar, purity and risk in equal measure. You look one last time into the warped reflection in your metal mirror. Your skin gleams faintly, your cheeks pale as porcelain, your expression composed. It's convincing. It might even fool the saints carved above the chapel door, but beauty doesn't end at the skin. Not here, not now. Your next battleground awaits higher up your hair, the crown that declares your rank before you ever speak a word.
Your hair, that daily battlefield, between elegance and practicality, waits for you like a sleeping beast. You touch it gingerly. It feels heavy, a little greasy from the almond oil you used last week, and slightly fragrant from the rose water you applied this morning. In the flicker of candlelight, it has the dull sheen of dark honey, or perhaps a damp straw, depending on your mood. Either way, this is your crown, and you must make it behave. In the Middle Ages, hair is no small matter. It's the symbol of virtue, vanity, and sometimes outright rebellion. A woman's hair can tell her story faster than her tongue can. A widow's veil, a maiden's uncovered braid, a noble woman's elaborate coils. Each sends a message louder than any sermon. And yours, of course, needs to look effortless, which means it will take at least an hour of effort. You begin with the comb. It's carved from bone, smooth at the teeth from years of use. You run it slowly through your hair, separating tangles that protest like small stubborn knots of time. The sound is strangely soothing, tiny clicks and whispers of strands surrendering. A few hairs fall to your lap. You pick them up and place them in a small wooden box. Yes, you keep your fallen hair. Everyone does. You'll use it later to stuff a pincushion, or perhaps to thicken tomorrow's braid. Waste not, even in vanity, the smell of your hair, slightly smoky from last night's hearth, mixes with the faint scent of rosemary oil. You warm a few drops between your palms and work them through, coaxing shine from the dull strands. The oil leaves your fingers slippery and your hair compliant, somewhere between fragrant and flammable. You tell yourself. Then comes the styling. You have a small mirror, still warped, so you work mostly by feel and memory. The simplest option is a single braid, wound around your head like a halo. But today, Perhaps because the light through the window looks merciful. You choose something more ambitious. You part your hair down the middle and begin to weave 2 long braids, crossing and looping them, pinning with small wooden sticks and bits of wire. It's a delicate architecture, part engineering, part prayer. You pull the braids tighter, securing them with a ribbon dyed with saffron. The golden thread catches the light, and for a moment, your reflection looks faintly noble. The ribbon smells faintly of vinegar, its dye still clinging to the cloth. And you wonder how many servants' hands work to make it that bright. In this world, beauty isn't born. It's built, strand by strand. If you were a nun, you'd have none of this to worry about. Your hair would be hidden beneath a veil, chopped blunt as an act of devotion. But you are not cloistered. You live in the world, and the world demands a certain presentation. You recall what the preacher said last Sunday, how a woman's hair is her glory, yet also her temptation. It's a strange sort of power, the kind that makes men write rules about how it should be covered. A strand escapes, tickling your cheek. You tuck it back and reach for a small pot of beeswax. The wax is warm and faintly sweet, like old honey. You rub a bit between your fingers and smooth it over the flyaways, sealing your masterpiece. Your scalp tingles from the tightness, but you tell yourself that's what refinement feels like. Now comes the ornamentation. You open a tiny chest that holds your treasures. A few pins of brass, 1 silver hair ring, and a string of pearls that you only dare wear when the occasion justifies it. Today, you settle for the brass pins, shaped like little flowers. They're simple but elegant, just enough to suggest you've tried, without looking like you've tried too hard. You place them carefully along the braid's curve. Each one catches the candlelight for an instant, like a wink from history. You lean closer to the mirror. The reflection wavers slightly, but it's enough. You look respectable, perhaps even a little radiant. As you finish, you realize how much time you've spent in quiet concentration. The act of grooming isn't just about appearance. It's meditation with tools. Every movement slows you down, draws you inward, softens the world's noise. You could almost fall asleep like this, sitting perfectly still, hands still sticky with oil and wax. Your hair is now secure, heavy, and slightly warm from your own touch. You test the braids by tilting your head. Nothing moves. You've built a structure strong enough to survive a mild storm, or, more likely, an afternoon gossip session. You smile faintly at that thought. The light in the room has shifted to a deeper gold. Outside you can hear faint chatter, footsteps in the courtyard, the creak of a cart. The day waits for you, as it always does, indifferent to whether your hair gleams or tangles. But still, this ritual has power. It's your small rebellion against chaos, your daily act of control in a world where control is scarce. You tie a thin veil loosely over the braids, a token of modesty more than a real covering, and breathe in the scent of oil and beeswax that lingers in the air. You feel polished, composed, and oddly fortified. Tomorrow, of course, you'll have to do it all again. Beauty is never permanent here. It's a daily negotiation between effort and illusion. But for now, your crown is secure.
You stand before the wooden chest that holds your clothes, the small but crucial, a battleground between modesty and mystery. Inside, everything smells faintly of smoke, lavender, and human effort. The garments are folded with care, though folded in the medieval sense means tucked until they stop falling over. You pause for a moment. Looking at the layers you'll soon have to wrangle onto your body. Beauty, you've learned, is never effortless here. It's a full-body negotiation between comfort, reputation, and gravity. You reach for the linen chemise first. It's the foundation, soft, thin, and worn to transparency in some places. You lift it to your face and inhale. It smells like lye soap and sun-dried fields. The fabric is cool against your skin as you pull it over your head. whispering across your shoulders like a breeze through reeds. Linen is merciful, one of the few materials that seems to like people back. It's simple, absorbent, and doesn't complain when you sweat. You will sweat because modesty is warm work. Over the chemise comes the kirtle, a long fitted gown that hugs you like a polite but insistent hug. This one is dyed a faded blue, once brighter, now softened by time and washing. You tug the laces along your sides, pulling them snug. You feel your ribs compress, not painfully, but enough to remind you that posture is part of presentation. A straight back signals good breeding, or at least the illusion of it. As you tighten the ties, you can't help thinking about what modesty means here. You're told it's a virtue, a form of humility that keeps the soul clean. But as your sleeves button at the wrist and your neckline brushes your chin, realize modesty also has a way of turning the body into a secret. Everything is hidden except the face and hands. The rest becomes a suggestion, a rumor of form. The irony, of course, is that what's hidden often becomes even more interesting. You catch a glimpse of yourself in the small mirror again. Covered from neck to ankle, you still look somehow alluring. The curve of fabric where your body moves beneath it, the whisper of shape, the soft rustle of layers, these become the language of suggestion. Medieval fashion may be conservative, but it's not blind. The people who make these rules know precisely what mystery does to the mind. Becomes the gown a heavier overdress of wool lined with fur at the cuffs. You slide your arms into it, feeling its weight settle over you like a sentence. The fur tickles your wrists, a tiny luxury in a world where softness is scarce. The gown is thick, nearly architectural, its skirt pooling around your feet in slow ripples. The moment it's fastened, you feel transformed, no longer simply you, but a version of you, curated for public consumption. A quiet sort of armor. You fasten a belt around your waist, leather polished and cracked from years of use. From it hangs a small pouch containing your keys, a rosary, and a piece of scented cloth, your portable arsenal of both duty and decency. The belt cinches your shape just enough to remind anyone looking that you are, indeed, human beneath the wool. The church may warn against vanity, but even saints were painted with nice waistlines. You pull your veil over your head next, securing it with pins along your temples. The fabric is light, nearly sheer, and moves like fog when you breathe. It's a symbol of modesty, yes, but also of status. The peasant's headscarf is rough wool. Yours, by comparison, whispers of finer threads. It hides your hair, but frames your face, softening your features like candlelight. You can feel the air shift slightly beneath it, a microclimate of warmth and restraint. If you were married, your veil would signal it. If you were widowed, it would darken in hue. If you were unmarried, your braids might still show a little beneath it, just enough to announce youth and availability. Every layer, every thread is coded communication. You don't need words to tell your story. Your clothes do it for you. As you smooth your skirts and adjust your veil, you think of how much of medieval beauty lies in this contradiction, the art of revealing by concealing. You hide your hair to make it seem more precious, cover your body to make it more intriguing. The less visible you become, the more attention gathers in the shadows of what's hidden. It's a strange game, and you're expected to play it flawlessly. You glance toward the window where the light has softened into late morning gold. The air smells faintly of damp stone and wool. Somewhere outside, a church bell tolls, long and slow, reminding you that modesty isn't just fashion, it's salvation insurance. You smile faintly. Even the holiest rules seem to leave room for style. When you move, your layers shift and sigh, like wind through fabric. You're warm now, wrapped in your own mystery, and ready to face a world where virtue and vanity often share the same thread. Every step will rustle quietly, every gesture measured. You know this before the day even begins. The world around you smells. Not faintly, not politely, boldly. Life in the Middle Ages is lived nose first. Every street, hall, and person carries its own signature blend of scents, most of which would politely clear a modern room. There's smoke from the hearth, the animal musk from tanned hides, the sweet rot of hay stored too long, and of course, the honest humanity of bodies without plumbing. In this landscape, perfume isn't just a luxury, it's armor. You sit by the window where the light falls in a narrow, dusty stripe. Beside you is your small wooden coffer of treasures, vials, and flasks filled with the closest thing to enchantment medieval life allows. Some are glass, others clay, stoppered with wax or linen. Their contents vary from amber to rose, lavender to musk. Together they smell like a small garden trying to survive inside a kitchen. You unstopper one bottle and breathe in. Rose water, faint but fresh, the kind that's been distilled with care over coals and copper. You can almost picture it, the petals crushed in linen. The fragrant steam coaxed through pipes until it drips, clear and shy, into a waiting bowl. The scent is brief, delicate, almost apologetic, but that's part of its charm. In a world where odor announces everything, rank, health, since smelling faintly of roses is a small miracle, you dab a few drops at your throat and wrists. The liquid is cool, and as it evaporates, it leaves behind a whisper of something heavenly, a promise that, for a short while, you might smell like something other than the century you live in. But perfumes aren't just about personal pleasure. They are a social necessity, especially for those of means. You can't afford to offend a visiting noble or priest with the scent of reality. You must smell of refinement, spices, and flowers that hint at foreign trade routes and gentle living. The irony, of course, is that the stronger the perfume, the closer it sits to a sign. Vanity, after all, has its own fragrance in the moral imagination. The trick is to seem fragrant without seeming prideful, delicate balance, like adding honey to medicine. You glance toward the fireplace, where a small brazier smolders quietly. Into it, you toss a pinch of crushed herbs or some airy thyme, maybe a sliver of cinnamon if you're feeling extravagant. The smoke curls upward and the room transforms. Suddenly it smells less like humans and more like ambition. The scent clings to your gown, to your hair, to the very air. The smoke will drift through the wooden beams, settle into the fabric of your life. In a sense, the whole house becomes your perfume. You remember the recipe's little spells passed through generations. Vinegar steeped with lavender for sweet air, rose petals soaked in oil for a noble scent, even dried. Orange peel tucked into sleeves or sewn into hymns. One of your friends swears by crushed juniper berries mixed with goat fat. You smile faintly at that. Necessity breeds both creativity and strange aromas. Bathing, after all, is an irregular affair. You might wash your hands and face daily, maybe rinse your hair in scented water on feast days, but a full immersion? Rare and often discouraged. The body's natural oils, they say, protect against illness. So instead, you rely on layers of fabric, of fragrance, of polite denial. Perfume becomes your second skin, a way to rewrite the story your body tells. You reach for a small pomander, next a hollow ball of brass with delicate holes hanging from a chain. Inside, a fragrant paste of ambergris and herbs slowly warms in your palm. The smell is deep and complex, somewhere between forest and fire, clean and animal. Fasten it to your belt, letting it swing as you move. Wherever you go, it leaves a trail of faint perfume, a reminder that you are trying valiantly to smell like heaven while living firmly in the realm of earth. Even your linens carry fragrance. When you stored them last week, you tucked sprigs of dried lavender and sage between the folds. Now, when you pull them close, they release a quiet sigh of sweetness, small comforts, tucked between the demands of the day. You've heard that in faraway lands they burn incense made from resins so precious that merchants guard them with their lives. You'll never see such luxury, but you like to imagine it, temples filled with golden smoke, nobles perfumed from head to hem. Here, your resources are simpler but no less meaningful. Every flower distilled, every leaf crushed, is a defiance of decay. And yet, beneath all the artifice, the truth lingers. By evening, no matter how you prepare, the smoke and sweat of daily life will reclaim you. The scent of labor, of wool, and cooking fat will settle back into your clothes. But for now, for these few fragrant hours, you are transformed. You are a bouquet of effort, wrapped in linen and hope. You close the lid of your perfume box gently, sealing in the scents for another day. The room hums quietly, caught between fragrance and the faint tanks of smoke. You breathe deeply once more, and the air feels almost civilized. Outside, someone passes in the corridor, smelling unmistakably of horse and earth. You smile. You can't win the battle against smell. Not completely. but you can at least fight it stylishly. It's been several days, possibly a week, since your last full washing, and the time has come to surrender to water. You can almost hear it calling from the wooden tub in the corner. A humble thing that looks more like a barrel on holiday than a luxury. Still, to bathe is no small affair. In the medieval world, it's not a casual routine, but a ritual, logistical, and moral event that involves preparation, patience, and sometimes a little guilt. First comes the fire. You crouch by the hearth, coaxing the embers back to life with a puff of breath. The logs crackle awake, and a pot of water begins to warm over the flames. The scent of smoke mingles with steam, creating a kind of domestic alchemy. It will take an hour, maybe more, before the water is ready. In that time, you'll fetch fresh herbs, mint, rosemary, a few sprigs of marjoram, toss in later, both for their scent and for their supposed healing virtues. After all, when doctors aren't sure what causes disease, a handful of herbs is as good an explanation as any. As the water heats, you prepare the space. The room is cool, its walls thick with the smell of old stone and wood smoke. You spread clean linen on the bench beside the tub, lay out your rough sopa, grayish lump, made from lye, an animal fat, and a small cloth for scrubbing. A jug of rose water waits nearby, ready for a final rinse, like the perfume at the end of a long sentence. The bath itself is a performance of modesty and practicality. You test the water with your hand. It's hot, nearly too hot, and pour it into the tub, mixing with a bit of cold from a nearby bucket. When the balance feels right, you slip in slowly, the wood creaking beneath you. The water rises around your legs, then your waist, then your chest. It's not a spa. There are no candles, no glass of wine, but it's quiet, and the warmth seeps into your bones. For a moment, you close your eyes. The world narrows to the sound of gentle sloshing and the faint hiss of the fire. You smell the rosemary floating near your arm, releasing its sharp green scent into the air. The steam beads along your hairline, softening the oil that's gathered there. It's an intimacy that feels almost secret. Baths in this world are rare enough to be remembered. If you lived in a city, you might visit a public bathhouse, instead a place equal parts hygiene and gossip. There, men and women sometimes bathe in separate hours, though not always. It's not as scandalous as later centuries would claim. After all, the medieval mind is far more pragmatic about the body than you might expect. A clean person, they reason, is a more godly one. For now, though, you have your own small sanctuary, and that feels grand enough. You begin to scrub gently with the rough cloth, the soap biting faintly against your skin. The scent is sharp lye and tallow, honesty in solid form. You work from wrist to elbow, shoulder to neck, each stroke lifting a week's worth of dust and effort. Beneath it all, your skin feels new again, faintly flushed, almost glowing in the dim light. You think of how this same ritual has been performed by peasants, queens, monks, and soldiers alike. Cleanliness, though fleeting, levels everyone. You pour a small jug of warm water over your hair, then another. The strands darken, heavy with heat, and you work a little soap into the roots. There's no shampoo here, no fruit-scented promise of volume, just the mild sting of lye. And the faint hope that the rinse will carry away more dirt than it leaves behind? When you lean back and dip your head under, the world goes silent. For a brief second, you exist only as warmth and breath. When you surface, you're half dreaming. The steam clouds the air so thickly that even the walls look softened. You imagine this must be what paradise feels like. If paradise had splinters and smelled faintly of goat fat, you take up the herbs and crumble them between your fingers, releasing their oils into the water. Mint cools the air as it touches your skin, rosemary sharpens your thoughts, and marjoram offers a subtle sweetness that makes the whole room smell alive. You linger there, toes curling against the wooden base, feeling both vulnerable and powerful in your temporary cleanliness. But indulgence must always end. You reach for the jug of rose water and pour it over your shoulders, shivering at the sudden coolness. The fragrance lifts instantly, light and floral, like a promise that you'll carry this moment with you a little longer. Then you rise, the water sighing around you, and step onto the linen you laid out earlier. You pat yourself dry with another cloth rough, but comforting. Your skin feels raw and awake, as though it's breathing for the first time in days. You wrap your hair in a towel and stand for a moment, letting the last of the steam curl upward into the rafters. Soon enough, the water will cool, and someone will have to carry it out to the garden to be emptied. It will water the soil, feed the herbs that will one day perfume your next bath. Eve. Waste has a way of returning to usefulness here. As you dress again linen first, then will you feel lighter, calmer. The world outside may still smell of smoke and sweat, but for now, you carry your own small fragrance of cleanliness. The act of bathing, like prayer, doesn't change the world. It changes the way you move through it. Your hands are the first thing people see when you reach for anything: a goblet, a letter, a prayer book. They tell your story whether you speak or not. In the medieval world, hands are social currency. A lady's hand should look soft, pale, and untouched by work. Even if the truth is that everyone, noble or not, wrestles with labor of one kind or another. The difference is in the cover story, the illusion you can maintain. You lift your hands into the morning light, inspecting them critically. The fingers are slender, but a little rough along the sides, evidence of daily life sneaking through the cracks of gentility. You trace the faint redness around your knuckles, perhaps from yesterday's sewing, or from pulling a bucket of water that was technically someone else's job. If a nobleman's hand shows strength, yours must show restraint. To appear delicate is to appear above necessity. On your table, beside a comb and a pot of rose salve, sits your little bowl of water. It's cool, faintly clouded with milk, and scented with crushed violets. You dip your fingers into it, letting the chill bite gently at your skin. The scent rises in soft waves, wrapping the air in sweetness. You think of the books that describe what a woman's hand should be: white as lilies, smooth as polished ivory, soft as silk. A poet once claimed that the hands of a saint could heal by touch alone. You smile faintly. Yours might not heal anyone, but they can at least avoid frightening them. You scrub gently with a cloth, not to clean so much as to polish. The medieval approach to skincare is closer to woodwork than dermatology. You smooth, you buff, you oil. After the wash, you take a small pot of ointment made of beeswax, almond oil, and the faintest hint of honey, and work it into your palms. The scent is comforting, the texture thick and slightly sticky. You rub until the sheen appears, like new varnish catching light. Your nails are short, rounded, and a little uneven. The tools are crude: a small knife, a strip of rough cloth, but they do the job. Painted nails aren't fashionable here. Too much color belongs to actors and courtesans. A natural pink glow is ideal, though nature doesn't always cooperate. You consider rubbing your fingertips with a slice of beetroot, just enough to suggest a healthy flush. It's a trick passed among women, whispered like a secret. Beauty often is. If your hands must do real work: spinning, stitching, writing, you'll pay for it in texture. Leaves calluses, quills leave stains, and even the act of prayer leaves its mark if you do it long enough. You can always tell the pious by the faint polish of their fingertips, worn from crossing and clasping. There's a certain beauty in that too, the kind that doesn't care for appearances. Do you, like most, live between devotion and display? You pick up your embroidery from the chair nearby. The fabric is soft beneath your newly oiled fingers, the needle flashing in the light. Each stitch is an act of patience and also a small betrayal of your efforts at delicacy. The thread bites slightly against your skin, leaving faint impressions that no salve can fully hide. But you keep sewing because it's expected. A lady must appear industrious, even in leisure. Your embroidery may one day hang in a chapel or line a garment, silent proof that your hands were gentle, even when they weren't idle. Sometimes you envy the rough, capable hands of the women at the market. Their palms are darkened by the sun, their nails strong and practical. No one mistakes them for fragile. But fragility in your world is a kind of power. It suggests that others do the lifting, the kneading, the carrying. Pale hands mean distance from labor on advertisement of comfort. And comfort, in this age, is as rare and precious as any jewel. You stretch your fingers, admiring how the light plays along the skin. In the stillness, they almost look like a marble, cool and smooth, shaped for elegance. You lace them together and smile faintly. Hands are tools, but also instruments of expression. A single gesture, a wave, a prayer, a touch can change a conversation. A lady's hands must therefore perform as gracefully as they appear. To maintain that illusion, you occasionally dust them with powdered rice or chalk, softening their color. It gives the skin a matte, unearthly glow like moonlight made tangible. Sometimes you mix the powder with rose water to make a light paste, which dries into a faint film. The sensation is strange tightening, then flaking, but beauty is never entirely comfortable. By the window, the scent of mint drifts in from the herb garden. You rub your hands together one last time, feeling the oil sink in. They gleam softly, faintly fragrant, fragile enough to pass inspection. You glance down at them and think of all they do: writing letters, holding cups, steadying veils, mending hymns, blessing bread. They carry grace, but also effort. The contradiction seems fitting. You dry them carefully on a linen cloth, pressing rather than wiping, so as not to undo the work. Your fingers feel cool and oddly light, your palms supple. You flex them once, twice, imagining what they say about you to the world. It's not power, perhaps, but poise. It's not strength, but subtlety. And as the bell outside tolls for midday prayers, you rise, your freshly tended hands folded neatly in front of you. They look serene, compliant, perfectly still. But beneath the surface, they are warm, alive, and capable, just as you are.
You sit before your small mirror, a piece of polished metal, more interested in distorting your reflection than flattering it. It's early, and the light from the window is soft, good, forgiving light, the kind that makes even the weary look gentle. On the table before you lies a modest collection of beauty tools: a tiny pot of rouge, a comb with missing teeth, a feather used for dusting powder, and a bowl of rose water that still carries the faint scent of yesterday. Your face, as it is perfectly ordinary, but in this world, ordinary needs adjustment. Pale skin speaks of leisure, of noble detachment from the sun and soil. So you begin, as always, with light. You take a small linen pad, dip it into the powder, finely ground chalk mixed with rice flour, and gently press it against your cheeks. The texture is soft and dry, like the ghost of snow. You dab it slowly, evenly, coaxing the pallor into place. Each pat turns your skin into a canvas, blank, bloodless, but elegant. The powder smells faintly of lavender, masking the less poetic odor of whatever animal fat helped it cling to your skin. You breathe through it, accustomed to the ritual. To the medieval mind, beauty is a balance between nature and artifice. You aren't erasing your humanity, merely polishing it to a finer shine. When the base is set, you reach for the heart of the transformation. Rouge. The color is rich and uncertain, made from crushed berries, or, if fortune smiles, from cochineal insects ground into a red dust, so vivid it almost glows. You take a small dab with your fingertip, careful not to overdo it. The trick is in restraint, just enough to make it seem as though your blood naturally hums near the surface. Too much, and you risk looking more like a jester than a lady. The rouge feels slightly gritty, like wet earth rubbed between fingers. You touch it to your cheeks in tiny circles, blending until the color seems to bloom from within. The mirror catches the change, a whisper of vitality, a touch of warmth, where moments ago there was only chalk. This is what people call the healthy look, though true health, ironically, often looks far less polished. In some courts, women are told to keep their makeup secret, to pretend that beauty comes from virtue and clean living alone. You find that amusing. The saints in the chapel paintings glow like porcelain, their cheeks tinted by the same pigment that sits on your table. Piety, it seems, has a color formula. You add a trace of tint to your lips, the same rouge softened with honey to make a paste. It tastes faintly sweet and slightly metallic. When you press your lips together, they gleam softly, like wax-sealed letters. You tilt your head and study the result. Better. You look awake, almost alert enough to face the day's endless cycle of niceties and obligations. For your eyebrows, you darken them just slightly with a bit of soot rubbed between your fingers. Some ladies pluck their brows into thin, high arches. Others prefer a natural shape, softened with oil. You've learned moderation is key. The goal is to look effortlessly composed, as though you simply woke up, radiating mild serenity. You pause and examine your reflection. Powder, rouge, a hint of soot, each a quiet act of defiance against time, fatigue, and the medieval indifference to hygiene. There's a strange dignity in it, not vanity exactly, but self-preservation. You're crafting an image that will be remembered kindly, or at least mercifully. If a nobleman looks upon your face and sees gentleness, he imagines purity. If another woman sees it, she sees discipline, someone who knows the cost of appearance and pays it daily. Beauty here is labor disguised as grace. You are both artist and subject, painting the illusion that you were born untouched by the world. Outside, the bell tolls softly. Somewhere, servants are stirring cauldrons of laundry and sweeping cold corridors. You dip your fingers into the rosewater and gently pat your face, sealing in the work. The scent lingers, a mix of flowers and faint iron, beauty and burden intertwined. It's funny to think that all this effort is meant to suggest simplicity. The men write poems about natural beauty, but if they saw the backstage process, the powders, the pigments, the constant adjustments, they might faint from the sheer complexity of it all. Still, you play your part. The illusion is worth the trouble. As you tidy your tools, you notice the faint red smudge your fingers have left on the table. Evidence of your craft. You rub it away with the edge of your sleeve, leaving no trace. A lady's beauty, after all, should appear effortless and effortlessly maintained. You stand and stretch, feeling the soft pull of the powder across your skin. Your reflection looks calm, composed, and gently luminous, not radiant like a goddess, more like candlelight after dusk, steady and warm. You smile faintly. The face you wear is not false, only curated, a version of yourself that the world prefers to see. In truth, it's a small act of control, in a life where little else is yours to shape. Soon, you'll place the finishing touch, a veil, a wimple, perhaps a jeweled pin to catch the light. But for now, you enjoy this quiet moment between artifice and reality, where the line between them blurs in the reflection of a flawed mirror.
Your face, now pale and blushed in careful measure, is nearly complete, but there remains the matter of the eyes. The poets never shut up about them, those windows to the soul, though in your time, they are also windows to your social rank, your habits, and occasionally your daring. A woman's eyes can be both her crown and her downfall. They are meant to glimmer modestly, not blaze. Yet somehow, they must still catch the light. You lean close to the polished metal mirror again, squinting at the reflection. The light wavers on your pupils, and for a moment you can't tell if you look enchanting or merely tired. You reach for a tiny pot, the smallest among your beauty tools, containing a mixture of burnt clove, ash, and oil, a makeshift eyeliner. Some call it coal, others soot with ambition. It smells faintly of smoke, and when you touch it, it leaves a soft, oily trail. Carefully, you trace it along the edge of your eyelid, just enough to define the shape without suggesting witchcraft. The pigment feels cool against your skin. You blink once, twice, and the faint blackness deepens your gaze. It's remarkable, really, how such a tiny shadow can make you seem alive, alert, even mysterious. You think of how the nuns in the convent whisper about vanity, yet even they have been known to rub their lashes with candle soot for cleanliness. You tilt your head, studying the effect. The eyes seem larger now, framed as though someone dimmed the world around them to draw attention to their center. You've seen noblewomen exaggerate the look, painting their lids with ground lapis lazuli, same stone that colors the robes of saints in manuscript art. The blue is rare, expensive, and very slightly poisonous. The price of beauty, in the most literal sense. You have no lapis, only soot and patience. Still, the result pleases you. Your eyes now hold that faint shimmer of knowing, the look that says you've read more than you ought to, or at least overheard something interesting while pretending not to. Then there are the lashes. They are to be brushed with care, darkened lightly with oil to give them a sheen. Too much, and they clump. Too little, and you risk looking ill. The oil smells faintly of rosemary, a scent meant to chase away evil spirits and perhaps the memory of yesterday's smoke-filled hall. If you had the fortune or the foolishness of a court lady, you might even brighten your eyes with drops made of belladonna, the beautiful woman plant. A single drop dilates the pupils, making the eyes appear dreamy, romantic, and vaguely untrustworthy. Too much, however, and you'd simply stop breathing. Many a beauty has died with enchanting eyes and very little else to show for it. You, thankfully, are practical. You settle for a glimmer of natural moisture, a little tear of realism in an age that prizes illusion. You glance again at your reflection. The rouge on your cheeks and the faint powder on your skin now seem balanced by the quiet darkness of your eyes. They look thoughtful, even gentle in illusion, carefully crafted from smoke and patience. You blink again, and the movement catches the morning light filtering through the shutters. The reflection sparkles faintly, just enough to justify the chapter's title. Eyes like stars indeed, though these stars are made of ash and hope. In the dim candlelight of the hall, people will notice. They'll say you have eyes like polished glass or eyes that see too much. Both are compliments and warnings. To look too directly is to risk accusation of vanity, of cunning, of witchcraft even. But a soft gaze, held a little longer than propriety allows, can speak volumes in a silent world. It can promise, deflect, or command without ever uttering a word. You have learned to use that silence. You lower your lashes when men boast, raise them slightly when someone speaks truth, and glance away just when curiosity grows dangerous. Your eyes, more than any rouge or powder, are your weapon and your shield. In a world ruled by appearances, they are your most flexible armor. You dab once more at the corners with a scrap of linen, softening the edges. The trick, as always, is to make it look unstudied. No one must ever suspect how much thought goes into seeming effortless. Outside, a slant of sunlight lands on your hands, catching the faint shimmer of powder that still lingers there. You rub it off absently, not wanting to leave traces of your secret work. No. Your gaze returns to the mirror. Your reflection seems calm, but alive. The eyes draw everything else together, the soul of the portrait you've painted upon yourself. For a fleeting second, you imagine a future where someone studies portraits of your time, wondering how medieval women achieved this particular look of serenity, this pale glow and dark gaze. They'll probably think it was all natural light and divine favor. You smile faintly, if only they knew the truth of soot and rosewater, chalk and restraint. Your eyes, now quietly glowing, meet your own reflection one last time before you rise. The transformation is complete. In this era, perfection is not a gift of nature. It's a daily negotiation between what is seen and what must never be seen. You take a deep breath, the scent of lavender and smoke mingling in the air, and step away from the mirror. The world awaits your gaze, steady and unreadable. You've spent the better part of an hour perfecting your reflection, powdering, tinting, smudging, and polishing. But now, as you sit quietly, the realization settles in. This isn't merely vanity. It's rank, it's identity. Beauty in your world is not a matter of personal preference. It's currency, a language, and sometimes a weapon. You see it in the way people look at you when you enter a hall. Before anyone speaks a word, they've already decided your worth. They glance at your skin pale, unblemished, carefully protected from sunlight, and know you have leisure, servants, perhaps even a lineage of gentle blood. A tanned face, by contrast, whispers of fieldwork and labor. The same sun that blesses crops condemns complexions. It's an odd system, but one that makes perfect sense in a society obsessed with appearances. Your powdered skin, your faint blush, your soft eyes' etched detail is a public announcement of privilege. You are the opposite of toil. You are evidence of others' work. The smoothness of your hands tells of a life that doesn't touch rough things. Your perfume, rose water, honey, and clove doesn't just make you smell pleasant. It proclaims you can afford to smell of anything other than smoke and sweat. Beauty in the medieval world is not democratic. It's proof of access to mirrors, to imported pigments, to linen instead of rough wool, to time, even. A woman who can sit quietly for an hour to prepare her face is not struggling to feed her family. Each stroke of rouge, each dab of oil, is an act of social performance, a declaration, I am not like you. And yet the irony runs deep. Beneath the aristocratic layers of silk and scent lies the same human effort, the same exhaustion, the same fear of judgment. You can't escape it. Even among the highborn, the hierarchy continues. The queen's beauty must outshine the duchess's, whose must, in turn, surpass the laddie-in-waitings. The ladder never ends, and the cosmetics are just another rung. When you visit court, you see the contrast laid bare. The noblewomen glide by in a blur of white faces and jeweled veils, each a careful composition of light and texture. But look closely, and you'll see the effort behind the illusion, the powder clinging unevenly near the jawline, the faint redness around the eyes from last night's candlelit vigil, perfume thick enough to drown the scent of fatigue. They are all performing the same quiet ritual of deception, pretending they've never had to try. Meanwhile, in the town below, the women of the market wear no such masks. Their cheeks are reddened, not with rouge but with wind and sun. Their hands are cracked from washing, baking, mending. And yet, to them, your painted face might seem strange, even fragile. A lady's beauty may impress, but it doesn't inspire envy. It's too far removed from survival. Still, the line between class and color blurs at times. You've heard whispers of peasant girls darkening their lashes with ash, or rubbing crushed berries on their lips before festivals. A fleeting imitation of nobility, perhaps. Beauty is contagious, that wet seeps down the social ladder even as it... You've spent so much time among mirrors, powders, and perfumes that you might forget. Beyond the manor walls, beauty looks very different. The air smells of earth instead of lavender, and hands are strong from work rather than softened by milk baths. Yet here, too, people care about how they look. Not because they have time to fuss, but because even in hardship, appearance has meaning. Beauty, in the village, is a quiet kind of pride. You walk down the narrow dirt lane that threads between low, timbered cottages. Smoke drifts lazily from the chimneys, mixing with the scent of damp straw and fresh bread. A woman kneels beside a washtub, sleeves rolled up, her hair escaping its scarf in wild curls. Her skin is sun-browned, her cheeks flushed with effort. When she glances up, her eyes are bright, not the polished gleam of courtly coal, but something fiercer, more alive. This is beauty of another kind, not powdered, not painted, but built from labor and weather. The women here have no time for elaborate routines. Their mornings begin with fire-making, dew-kneading, and child-chasing. If they apply anything to their faces, it's seen to the faint sheen of sweat or the occasional touch of homemade balm, a bit of lard, mixed with beeswax to keep the wind from cracking their lips. It smells faintly of honey and smoke. Still, they take pride in small things. Clean hair on Sunday, brushed till it shines. A ribbon tied around a braid, dyed with onion skins or elderberries. A bit of color on the cheeks after a long walk in the cold nature's rouge, free of charge.
Yeah.
The ideal of beauty here isn't pallor, it's vitality. Strong shoulders, clear eyes, a body that endures. To look too fragile would be almost shameful. You'd be no use in the fields that way. You pass a group of girls drawing water from the well, laughing in bursts between chores. One dips her hands in the bucket, splashes her face, and shakes the droplets away with a grin. Her skin gleams in the morning light, unpainted but luminous in its own right. For them, beauty isn't a crafted illusion. It's proof of resilience, of a life wrestled from mud and seasons. Of course they know what passes for beauty in the manor house up the hill. They've seen the ladies ride past on fine horses, their veils fluttering, their hands hidden beneath gloves. They whisper about them sometimes, half in awe, half in amusement. Imagine fearing the sun, one says. Imagine not being allowed to laugh too loud. There's admiration there, but also pity. To the peasant eye, noble beauty looks delicate, almost unreal, like a painted doll left too long in a cold chapel. Their own beauty is practical. Hair is washed with lye soap when possible, or rinsed in rainwater, steeped with herbs rose. Marry if they can find it, nettle if not. Teeth are scrubbed with ash, and clothes are beaten clean on rocks by the river. They use what's available, crushed berries for a rare touch of lip color, soot to darken the lashes for a festival, and flower petals rubbed into the skin for scent. The results may not be refined, but they're theirs. There's something defiant in that. To find beauty in a life that offers so little leisure is an act of quiet rebellion. These women may not own jewels, but they understand grace. When they gather at church on feast days, wearing their best tunics and fresh braids, there's a glow to the room that has nothing to do with candlelight. It's pride, the kind that comes from surviving another season, from keeping the body strong and the spirit bright despite it all. You pause by a patch of herbs growing beside a cottage wall: sage, thyme, and marigold. A woman bends to pick some, humming under her breath. The scent rises in the air, sharp and green. She uses the same herbs for medicine, for cooking, and yes, for beauty. A sprig of sage to wash her hair, marigold petals steeped in oil to soften her hands. The line between healing and beautifying blurs. Both are simply ways of honoring the body that carries her through the work of living. You think of how the manor ladies envy this kind of health, though they'd never admit it. Their own skin is pale from long days indoors, their bodies softened by idleness. Peasant beauty is what happens when the world itself is your mirror, the wind shaping your cheeks, sun painting your arms, the seasons marking your strength. Even men take part in their own quiet grooming. Beards trimmed with knives more suited to cutting bread than hair, shirts washed before church, boots scraped clean of mud. There. A sense of dignity in showing up to the world, even when that world rarely looks back kindly. As evening falls, the village settles. Smoke curls upward, glowing orange against the fading sky. Inside, firelight dances across, faces lined, freckled, smiling. There's laughter, a story, a shared loaf of bread. In that flickering light, everyone looks beautiful in their own way, though no one speaks of it. They don't need to. Because here, beauty isn't painted on, it's lived in. It's in the way people carry themselves through long days and cold nights, the way they keep a touch of grace amid mud, hunger, and toil. It's survival made visible. Beauty, in your world, isn't just about powders and paints. It's also about luck, charm, and a hint of magic. Beneath the layers of ritual and routine lies a web of small superstitions. Whispered recipes and hopeful nonsense that people cling to like secret spells. Ow! What's the point of looking beautiful if no one notices? And what if the one you want to notice seems stubbornly immune to your rouge and your smiles? It's when love turns from art to alchemy. You've heard the stories, of course. They pass from maid to mistress, from traveler to tavern keeper, half in jest and half in faith. Some claim that a strand of your hair tied with another S under a waxing moon can bind hearts. Others say that if you drop your lover's name into a cup of wine and drink it in silence, you'll dream of them that very night. The ingredients for love, it seems, are mostly imagination and a willingness to risk indigestion. Still, there are those who take it seriously. In villages and courts alike, wise women or cunning women, as they're often called, offer small vials of mysterious liquids for the lovesick. A potion might be brewed from rose petals, honey, cinnamon, and a few drops of wine, stirred clockwise for devotion and counterclockwise for desire. It smells pleasant enough, though whether it changes hearts or merely softens the mind is anyone's guess. Many a heartache has been cured by the placebo of hope. In noble circles, the recipes get more elaborate. Some call for powdered pearls to symbolize purity, or bits of gold leaf stirred into syrup for eternal wealth and affection. You imagine the tastes, sweet, heavy, a little absurd, but it's less about consumption than about control. To drink such a potion is to believe, for a brief and shining moment, that you can bend love to your will. That beauty isn't just skin deep, it's enchanted. Of course, not all such charms are so harmless. There are darker whispers, 2 filters made with dangerous herbs. Belladonna, or mandrake root, said to stir passion or madness depending on the dose. Some women keep small satchels of these hidden among their belongings, not out of malice, but desperation. In a world where marriages are arranged and affection is optional, a potion offers the illusion of choice. And illusions here are often enough. Even simple gestures carry weight. A ribbon dropped accidentally before a man, a loaf of bread baked with a hidden sprig of rosemary, a lock of hair burned in the hearth to make someone think of you. Harmless, sentimental tricks, but try telling that to the priest who thunders from the pulpit about witchcraft and temptation. The church frowns on such things, calling them sins of pride and manipulation. But behind closed doors, Even the devout sometimes sneak a clove into their pocket for luck and affection. Perfume itself is halfway to magic. The right centros, musk, or amber can turn ahead faster than any spell. Some women wear sprigs of lavender in their hair, not just for fragrance, but for attraction, believing the flower carries the power to invite love and ward off jealousy. You've seen a few ladies secretly anoint their wrists with oil before a feast, murmuring something under their breath, a prayer perhaps, or a wish. And yet, there's an undercurrent of danger in it all. If a woman grows too beautiful, too alluring, people start to whisper. Beauty enhanced by nature is blessed. Beauty enhanced by mystery is suspicious. The line between a love charm and witchcraft is thinner than a strand of hair. A potion that delights one man might condemn another woman. It's an old story told again. And again, the world wants women to be lovely, but not powerful. And these small, fragrant bottles are both. You think of a young girl from the village who once dared to mix a love potion for a miller's son. She steeped rose petals and thyme in milk, added a few drops of her own tears for sincerity, and left it on his doorstep. The next day, he smiled at her for the first time. A miracle, she thought. Perhaps he'd have smiled anyway, perhaps not. But for her, it was enough proof that beauty and belief were intertwined, that a little faith, stirred into milk, could change the course of her life. In truth, these potions and charms are less about control than comfort. When the world gives you few choices, a ritual gives you the illusion of one. It's a handful of herbs, a whispered verse, a secret gesture. It's not so different from applying rouge or wearing your hair just so. It's both are ways of saying, I still have power over how I am seen. Night falls as you consider these things. Somewhere, a pot simmers on a hearth, fragrant with honey and spice. A woman leans over it, eyes gleaming in the firelight, stirring her hopes into something tangible. Whether it works or not, almost doesn't matter. The act itself is magic enough. The alchemy of desire, loneliness, and belief blending into a soft, invisible spell. You've sat before a mirror countless times, but this feels different. The painter across from you tilts his head like a falcon, his brush hovering just above the canvas. You can almost hear him measuring you not in inches or angles, but in reputation. Because here, in this gilded chamber, smelling faintly of oil, wax, and expectation, a portrait is never just a likeness. It's an illusion dressed as truth. You sit perfectly still, or as close to still as a human being can reasonably manage, while their arm goes numb and their mind drifts. The artist asks for a bit more serenity, as if serenity were a muscle you could flex. He tells you to think of something pleasant. You think instead about how itchy your collar is and how strange it feels to have your very existence reduced to light and color. Your dress gleams in the lamplight silk, perhaps, or satin, carefully chosen because portraits remember what people forget. Years from now, when this painting hangs in some corridor, the viewer will see grace. And poise not the stubborn stain on your sleeve or the fact that you've been holding your breath for the past minute. A portrait is a lie agreed upon, a collaboration between vanity and artistry, sealed in pigment. The painter dabs at the canvas, humming softly. You wonder what he sees. Not you, surely, but the version of you that will flatter his patron or your family's ambition. If you're noble, you'll be given a calm dignity, a touch of radiance, perhaps a faintly smug turn of the lips. If you're married, you'll appear chaste and composed. If unmarried, your eyes will have a touch of mystery, just enough to suggest virtue's delicate edge. Everything has meaning, the tilt of a head, the color of a ribbon, the angle of your gaze. And yet, this isn't deception exactly. It's theater. Society itself is one long performance, and the portrait is its souvenir. Painters know this better than anyone. They paint not who you are, but who you must appear to be. The cheeks get softened, the jawline refined. The shadows are adjusted until reality seems almost impolite. You might leave looking like yourself, but the version of yourself that has been politely edited for public display. It's flattering, of course. Who doesn't want to be remembered at their best? But there's something quietly unnerving about it, too. To see your reflection fixed forever in paint, silent and smiling, long after you've changed. That woman in the portrait will never age, never speak, never contradict. She'll always be graceful, always composed. You, however, will continue to live, to wrinkle, to sigh.
Dude.
It's a strange kind of immortality, one that traps rather than frees. Outside of noble halls, the illusion continues in humbler forms. Lovers exchange miniature portraits, tiny painted faces tucked into lockets or hidden behind brooches. They're the medieval equivalent of filtered photo, smoother skin, brighter eyes, a little less truth, and a little more hope. You imagine? You run your fingers across the fabric of your sleeve, and it's like touching social order itself. In the medieval world, cloth isn't just something you wear, it's something you declare. Every thread whispers who you are, what you can afford, and what story you want others to believe. The rough weave of linen murmurs humility. The shimmer of silk purrs privilege. Wool, warm and honest, says practicality with a touch of resignation. You know this, of course. Everyone does. There's no escaping the code. It's stitched into life as tightly as a hem. To walk through a medieval market is to pass through a living tapestry of ambition. And restraint maids in simple brown dresses, merchants wrapped in dyed wool, and nobles drifting past in garments that catch the light like water. Even the air seems aware of it, heavy with the sense of dye vats, sweat, and aspiration. If you're wealthy, your clothing begins its journey far from you. Italian silk merchants, Flemish weavers, dyers whose hands are forever stained with indigo or madder. Each touch, each trade adds another layer of status. By the time it reaches your shoulders, it's more than fabric. It's a symbol of distance, labor, and privilege. A rare color like deep crimson or rich purple doesn't just look beautiful, it declares that your beauty is sponsored by empire and coin. And if you're not wealthy, well, the rules still apply. You can't wear what you please. The sumptuary laws, those stern little lists of what fabrics and colors belong to which class. Make sure of that. You might long for velvet, but the law says you'll have to settle for wool. You might dream of a golden brocade, but the constable would fine you for daring to sparkle above your station. In theory, this keeps the social fabric from fraying. In practice, it just makes everyone more creative with their tailoring. The art of allure, then, is one of suggestion. If you can't afford silk, you learn to make linen gleam with careful washing and starching. You choose colors that flatter the candlelight, and you walk slowly, letting the folds of your dress fall just so. You learn to make beauty from restraint. And in a way, that quiet defiance beauty on your own terms is its own kind of power. For noble women, allure is both privilege and performance. You might have a lady's maid to help you dress, tugging the bodice tight and smoothing the skirts until you resemble a sculpture. Your sleeves could weigh as much as a small child, embroidered with tiny pearls and threads of gold. Comfort is not the point, impression is. Every rustle of fabric is a deliberate announcement. Wealth, breeding, patience, and the ability to endure mild suffocation gracefully. For men, too, the fabric of allure has its language. Fine tunics, jeweled belts, and patterned hose display confidence and control. A well-cut doublet can make a prince seem powerful, or a poet seem romantic, depending on how the light catches the weave. And if you think vanity is a woman's domain, you've clearly never met a courtier adjusting his sleeves before an audience with the king. But the power of fabric goes beyond appearance. It's tactile psychology. People behave differently in fine clothes. They move slower, speak softer, expect more. It's as if the fabric itself teaches you how to act, coaxing your posture and gestures into the version of yourself you wish to be. The poor may envy the rich, but the rich are just as trapped trussed up in their brocades, always aware that one tear or stain could unravel their entire illusion. Still, allure isn't purely about wealth. The most captivating looks often belong to those who understand proportion, movement, and grace. A woman in clean linen, her hair neatly veiled, can outshine a duchess dripping in velvet if she carries herself with quiet assurance. The fabric may draw the eye, but it's the person within it who holds it there. Even so, you can't ignore the allure of color. In a gray and muddy world, color is luxury. The deep blue of woad, the gold of saffron, the red of cochineal leech, one rare, costly, and fiercely guarded by guilds. You might not think of beauty as chemistry, but it often starts in a dye pot, where crushed beetles, burnt bones, and fermented plants give birth to splendor. The next time you see a noble woman glide past in a gown the color of sunset, remember that someone somewhere boiled that glory out of a weed. You trace the embroidery at your cuff, noticing how the The candles have burned lower these days. Mirror small, slightly warped, and brutally honest, has become a less trusted companion. You still look, of course, because everyone does. But now your reflection greets you with soft reminders that time is an undefeated craftsman. Lines near your eyes, the faint slack at the jaw, the silver threads among your hair, they've appeared not suddenly, but slyly, as if they'd been sneaking in each night, rearranging your face by candlelight. In the medieval world, aging isn't exactly celebrated. It's tolerated, sometimes respected, often ignored. For men, wrinkles might hint at wisdom or authority. For women, they tend to suggest the opposite proof, that beauty and perhaps usefulness has passed its prime. You can almost hear the gossip in the market stalls. She was lovely once. There's no malice in it, only resignation. The culture worships youth, even as it praises virtue and experience. A lovely contradiction, really admiring chastity, but longing for bloom. So you do what anyone might. You adjust. You soften your smiles so the wrinkles don't deepen. You tie your wimple or veil a little tighter, letting fabric take over where complexion once did. You dab rose water at your temples, not for scent alone, but for memory of days when perfume clung to youth instead of nostalgia. The mirror may not flatter you anymore, but candles are forgiving, and evening light is a friend. Some remedies exist, though they're often more hope than help. Honey and milk are said to restore softness. Vinegar mixed with herbs promises to revive the skin. A few adventurous souls even dab on mixtures of crushed pearls or egg whites to tighten the face. The effect lasts about as long as a good nap. Still you do it, because ritual itself feels comforting, like asserting a small, fragrant defiance against time's quiet arithmetic. You hear of noble women who hide behind layers of powder-chalky mixtures that cling like frost and leave the air smelling faintly of lead. They smile with painted mouths and eyes that flicker with the knowledge that beauty has become a profession, not a pleasure. There's something both tragic and tender about it. The effort to preserve youth is as old as mirrors themselves. Even those who renounce vanity are often just practicing a subtler version of it. But aging has its own peculiar freedom if you're willing to find it. You no longer compete in the silent beauty contests of the court or worry whether your sleeves impress the right audience. The gossip flows around you now, harmless and distant. You can laugh more openly, eat what pleases you, and let comfort trump display. The young chase ideals, seasoned by years, understand that allure can live in voice, wit, and kindness. Wrinkles are simply the embroidery of experience, soon avoidable, yes, but oddly flattering if worn with grace. You also find that the standards begin to shift. A matron's beauty lies in composure, in wisdom expressed through steady eyes and sure speech. You learn to read faces differently, the calm in someone who's survived hardship, the humor behind a tired smile, the light that glows where vanity once burned. It's subtler beauty, but truer. You start to recognize it everywhere, on nuns, on widows, even on weary mothers who've forgotten they were ever considered lovely. Of course, the church has its own view of aging. It reminds you that beauty of the flesh fades, but beauty of the soul endures. Priests preach that wrinkles are marks of virtue, signs that the body is yielding to the eternal. You nod politely at that, though part of you suspects the priest has never once tried to powder his own wrinkles. Still, it's a comforting idea that as the outer layers fall away, what's left might be something purer, more lasting. You begin to understand that aging gracefully isn't about resisting change, it's about reinterpreting it. The same hands that once fluttered with youth now move more slowly but with intention. The same eyes that once sought admiration now look outward, seeing others more clearly. You've traded dazzle for depth, and it feels almost like peace. Sometimes you catch sight of a younger woman adjusting her veil in the same uncertain way you once did, and you feel a quiet fondness rather than envy. You want to tell her that beauty doesn't disappear, it simply changes its dialect, becomes quieter, warmer, less for display and more for connection. And in the evenings, when the firelight flickers against your face, you think about how every age has its own allure. Youth glows, age glimmers. One burns fast, the other lingers. The trick, you realize, is to stop chasing the light and learn to stand where it naturally falls. You wake before dawn not to pray or to work the fields, but to begin the maintenance of yourself. It sounds grand, doesn't it? But the truth is quieter, more repetitive, more tiring than anyone admits. The work of real medieval beauty isn't glamour, it's labor. It's invisible, constant, often thankless labor that starts with rough hands and ends with a forced smile. The air is cold, and the first thing you feel is fabric layers of it. Wool shift, linen chemise, stiff corset strings, pulled tight by someone who has no sympathy for comfort. The chill bites your fingers as you splash water from a basin. It's barely clean, but it's enough to freshen your face and blur the fatigue of sleep. Somewhere down the hall, another woman is grinding almonds into paste, mixing them with honey to make a skin balm. The sound is rhythmic, almost meditative. Beauty begins in motion and ends in exhaustion. Every polished face at court, every soft curl and faint blush represents hours of work. Servants bend and strain, hands red from scrubbing, to produce that illusion of effortless grace. The noble woman you envy for her serenity? She probably spent 3 hours being poked, pinned, and powdered into stillness. The peasant who looks naturally glowing under the sun? She's worn her beauty into being through years of work, wind, and persistence. One labors to maintain perfection, the other to survive it. You see, the irony: beauty is supposed to elevate you above work, yet it demands more of it. You sit before a mirror and become a kind of craftsman yourself, plucking, polishing, arranging. The tools are simple but relentless: combs, oils, bits of bone or metal to scrape and smooth. Each ritual feels ancient, inherited, and strangely sacred. You do it not just for vanity, but for belonging. To neglect your appearance even slightly would be to signal carelessness, or worse, resignation. The servants move around you with quiet precision. One brushes out your hair long, tedious work if you're blessed or cursed with thick strands. Another lays out the day's garments, adjusting ribbons and hems until they hang just right. You sit motionless as they work like sculptors, building the day's illusion thread by thread. They have their own kind of artistry, though no one praises it. When people compliment your beauty, they rarely mention the aching hands that made it possible. And then there's the hidden labor within the labor, the preparation of the things that make beauty possible. The herbs that must be gathered and dried, the fats rendered down for soap, the rose petals steeped for scent. Each step takes time, patience, and knowledge, passed down through generations of women. Beauty, you realize, isn't a gift, it's an inheritance of toil. It's taught quietly, from mother to daughter, like prayer or penance. Even the clothes, those glorious fabrics that seem to glide effortlessly, have their price in sweat. Every seam, every embroidered flourish was the product of calloused fingers and sore backs. Tailors, spinners, dyers, all labor unseen. A noble shimmering sleeve might have passed through a dozen humble hands before ever touching her skin. In that sense, beauty is collective, 1,000 small sacrifices arranged into something admired by a few. Of course, no one calls it work. They call it refinement, care, virtue. A woman who spends hours tending her appearance is praised for her dedication. Servant who does the same for wages is invisible, yet both understand the truth. Beauty demands submission. Submission to time, to effort, to pain. You hold your posture until your back aches. You smile until your cheeks tremble. You walk slowly, gracefully, though your shoes pinch and the floor is uneven. The body becomes the canvas, but also the tool. And yet, amid the weariness, there's a strange intimacy to it all. The shared murmurs of women dressing together, exchanging tricks for softer hands or shinier hair. The quiet satisfaction when something works, a salve that soothes, a color that flatters. In those moments, beauty feels less like a duty and more like a conversation across time. You're not just maintaining yourself, you're participating in an old, almost sacred rhythm of care. Still, the exhaustion lingers. You think of how many hours, days, years are spent in pursuit of being seen. How many women before you have done the same, each performing the same rituals, each quietly wishing that their effort might one day be recognized as something more than vanity. Beauty, you realize, is a kind of invisible economies, currency paid in time, patience, and silent endurance. You step out into the cool evening air, and for a moment the centuries seem to fold together then, and now mirror and glass, oil lamp and phone screen. The medieval world, with all its perfumes and powders, its veils and vigilance, might feel impossibly far away. but its beauty still lingers in the corners of modern thought, whispering beneath our mirrors and filters. It's there, quiet but persistent, shaping how you see yourself and others, even if you don't recognize its voice. The truth is, the legacy of medieval beauty was never only about appearance. It was about control, identity, and survival. Back then, a smooth forehead wasn't simply a mark of health or youth. It was a moral sign, a social passport. Pale skin said you didn't labor outdoors. Soft hands said someone else worked for you. Beauty, then, was proof of order God above, nobles next, peasants below. In a way, every powdered cheek was an act of obedience, a quiet echo of hierarchy. And yet, for all its restrictions, beauty also became a language of resistance. Women learned to communicate through color, texture, and gesture. A ribbon tied too tightly, a glance held too long. A forbidden scent each was a coded message in a world where words could be dangerous. The body became both a canvas and a shield. The art of allure, a survival skill wrapped in silk. You start to realize that even in submission, there was strategy. Even in vanity, there was power. Some of those strategies never really disappeared. Look closely, and you can see their fingerprints all over modern life. The creams and tonics on your dresser, the careful choreography of morning routines, all of it descends from a time when self-presentation meant safety, not self-indulgence. The beauty industry, vast and glittering, is simply a louder version of what medieval women already understood, that appearance is currency and the cost is never just money. You might laugh at the absurdity of their practices: lead powder, hairline plucking, perfumed gloves to mask the scent of unwashed bodies. But think about the lengths we still go to in the name of looking better. The tools have changed, the obsession hasn't. We trade powders for serums, corsets for contour, but the rhythm is the same. Wake, prepare, perfect, repeat. It's strangely comforting and quietly haunting to realize how little we've evolved. Legacy isn't all burden. First, also the inheritance of ritual, the slow, tactile pleasure of care. Medieval women might not have had mirrors as clear as yours, but they knew how to savor the process. The warmth of water, scent of herbs crushed between fingers, the quiet companionship of preparation. Beneath the vanity was something softer, a human desire to connect, to express, to be noticed in a world that so often demanded invisibility. That part of the legacy feels worth keeping. And then there's the art, the portraits, tapestries, and illuminated manuscripts, so many faces, idealized yet oddly alive. Their smooth skin and serene expressions remind you of the impossible ideals that still hover over modern beauty. Airbrushed and filtered. Yet behind those painted smiles are real people, with cracked lips, missing teeth, tired hearts. The artists didn't just preserve their faces, they preserved the yearning, the ancient hope that beauty might make us eternal, or at least help us endure the fleeting nature of being seen. If you look carefully, you'll find the echoes everywhere. The no makeup look. A medieval concept achieving effortlessness through enormous effort. The fascination with youth, a centuries-old inheritance. The idea that moral goodness shines through physical beauty, a relic of theology dressed up as psychology. Even the phrase natural beauty would have puzzled your medieval counterpart, who knew perfectly well that nature without guidance was a dangerous, unpolished thing. Still, it's easy to be unfair to the past. The medieval world didn't invent vanity, it simply gave it structure, purpose, and oddly, grace. Beneath all the absurdity and danger beneath the lead, paint and rigid corsets, there was an undeniable tenderness in the attempt. They wanted to be loved, admired, remembered. So do we. They feared decay and obscurity. So do we. They stared into dim mirrors and tried to catch a glimpse of who they might become. So do we, just with brighter lights and higher resolution. So when you look into your own reflection, maybe there's a strange comfort in knowing that someone 600 years ago was doing the same thing: smoothing hair, straightening posture, whispering a small prayer that they looked all right. You and they are part of the same story, endlessly rewritten in face and fabric, ritual and reflection. The legacy of medieval beauty, then, isn't about the powders or perfumes that have long since turned to dust. It's about the persistence of longing, the wish to be seen as more than ordinary. The hope that grace might be something you can cultivate, even if only for a moment. And perhaps that's the truest kind of beauty. Not perfection, but participation. Because even now, when the mirrors are clearer and the candles are screens, you still find yourself leaning toward the light, searching for something human in your own reflection. You find yourself standing at the end of this quiet journey through time, through veils and powders, mirrors and myths.
Oh.
The story of beauty, you realize, was never just about looking lovely. It was about how people tried to make sense of themselves in a world that often didn't let them choose who they were. Every brush stroke of rouge, every careful pluck, every whispered charm each was a small act of defiance against decay, poverty, or simply the dullness of ordinary days. You can almost hear the echo of it across centuries. A noblewoman smoothing her hair by candlelight. A peasant girl pinning a wildflower into her braid. A merchant's wife dabbing rosewater on her wrists before Mass. They're all doing the same thing you do. In your own way, searching for a reflection that feels true, even when the world insists on telling you what true should look like. The world they lived in was full of limits of rank, of gender, of expectation, but beauty offered a kind of loophole. However small, however fleeting, it let a woman craft her own version of grace, even if only for a morning. In the flicker of a mirror's edge, she could belong to herself, and maybe that's what lingers. Beneath the powders and perfumes, beneath the silk and superstition, beauty was really about being seen, not just by others, but by oneself. To say, I am here, I exist, I matter, even in this small moment of care. When you step back now, the centuries seem softer. Their strangeness fades, because under all the ritual, you recognize something deeply familiar. The same tug of vanity, the same ache for approval, the same joy in transformation. Medieval beauty wasn't just the ancestor of modern aesthetics. It was the mirror we still peer into, hoping for reassurance that we are enough, or that we could be, with just a touch more effort. And yet, maybe the loveliest truth of all is that time erases everything we try so hard to preserve: paint, perfume, portrait, even face. What endures is the attempt itself, the quiet, hopeful ritual of tending to what's fragile. Beauty fades, but meaning lingers. The scent of rosewater might vanish, but the gesture, the human urge to create softness in a hard world remains. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, imagine the slow extinguishing of candles in a stone chamber somewhere centuries ago. Imagine the faint trace of lavender on linen, the echo of laughter behind a shuttered window, the ghost of a woman's reflection in a darkened mirror. She turns away, the light fades, and the world carries on. But for one small moment, she was luminous. And so are you. Good night.